Despite the hate that The Last Jedi has received, some justified, some not so much, there were always certain ideas and sequences throughout the film that stood out as fun and well made. I'm Travis from the Five Nights Tavern, and today we're going to take a look at the Battle of Crait. Let's get started. Be sure to like and subscribe if you find yourself enjoying the video. It helps us grow and produce more content. Off the back of the extremely controversial Holdo maneuver sequence, we find what's left of the Resistance hiding out in a base on the planet of Crait, with the base itself being an interesting blend of Echo base from Hoth as well as the one on Yavin, featuring a massive shield door at the entrance that at first glance seems impervious to damage. We like to call that foreshadowing. But there's no time to dwell on this, as Finn and Rose make a dramatic entrance inside a stolen First Order transport, which apparently doesn't have a working radio, because as soon as they crash down, the entire Resistance opens up on them wildly. I especially love this because Leia herself is out front and center of the group just blasting away. I don't know why, but that just seems funny to me. Now that our heroes are reunited, it's time for the setup. The Resistance is trapped inside this base and is broadcasting an SOS out to their allies in the galaxy. It must hold out until help arrives. Right off the back, we have a mirror flip of the Battle of Hoth, the main inspiration for Crait, as instead of trying to hold out for help, the rebellion fought to buy time for their forces to evacuate. Of course, we're going to see a lot of parallels to Hoth here, so I'll try to call them out as I see them. Now, when you look at that, there's something to call out. The First Order has decided that bigger means better, as they deploy a group of these massive AT-M6 walkers, flanked by the original AT-ATs of Hoth, just to show how much more imposing the First Order is compared to the Empire. Compensating much, Kylo? But the crown jewel of this attack is what Finn calls a battering ram cannon, with enough firepower to take out the entire shield door. This forces the Resistance to change up their strategy of just waiting around and doing nothing to a two-stage defensive line, with the infantry posting up in a network of trenches while Poe, Finn, and Rose lead a desperate speeder assault to try and knock out the battering ram. Once again, we have some pretty strong parallels here from Hoth, with a pretty similar setup, with the exception being the ram and these god-awful speeders. These things alone are the perfect personification of the dire straits that our heroes are in. They're busted up, weak, but still ready to fight, although I really wish the Resistance would have cut it out with the whole final charge thing. I get that it shows bravery in the face of impossible odds and is visually appealing, but come on guys, just flank around the massive walkers and hit them from behind. What's the First Order gonna do? Turn the walkers around? I'd love to see them try. Speaking of the visuals, I want to take a second and just admire them. This entire sequence is just gorgeous, especially the red salt getting kicked up by the speeders and blaster fire. Honestly, I can go on and on for ages about how much I like these visuals. It seems as though the First Order has learned a lesson from the old Empire and has deployed a group of TIE fighters to support the slow-moving walkers to great effect, with them easily picking off speeders and groups of troops alike with little trouble. That is, of course, until the legendary Millennium Falcon arrives to turn the tide and give the Resistance some breathing room by luring all the TIEs away from the battle. Guess the First Order only really learned like half a lesson here, but oh well, at least we get this really cool chase sequence through these gorgeous red caves. Man, I just can't get over how stunning this looks. I think I prefer this setting to Hoth, honestly. That just feels blasphemous to say, but oh well. Where were we again? Oh yeah, the speeders. Now in all honesty, did they ever even have a chance here? Like, I get they were supposed to be a parallel to the snow speeders of Hoth, but those things could fly around and dodge incoming fire. They didn't half the time, but you know, they had a chance to. Here it seems like nothing more than a suicide run from the very beginning. It's here that Poe's arc to becoming a true leader starts to pay off, as he is faced with a similar situation to the Battle of Crait, a battle we've covered previously on the channel, link down below. At the start of the film, where his recklessness got a bunch of his men needlessly killed, and had he not learned from it, could have very well made the same mistake here again, but instead he makes a tough call to abort the mission and save his friends, thus completing his arc in a satisfying way, if you ask me. At the same time, Finn is also wrapping up his arc, as he opts to sacrifice himself by running headlong into the ram and hopefully saving everyone in the process. Up until this point, Finn has portrayed himself as kind of a coward who preferred self-preservation over the greater good, and by choosing to die here, he breaks through that cowardice and grows as a character. Except for the fact that we already did that in the first film, where he overcame his fear to save his friends and even stood down Kylo Ren himself to save Rey. It's such a shame for Finn as a character. He had so much potential that he just wasted, and of course his sacrifice was just a cop-out anyway because Rose crashes into him, saving his life. This would have been a great time for Finn to discover his force sensitivity or something. Anything to help his character grow, since, he's one of the main 3 characters of this trilogy. Thankfully, the battle decides to crank the situation up to 11 as the First Order blows through the door, defeating the Resistance and ensuring their destruction if help doesn't arrive soon. It's here that the full scope of the situation is felt, as their distress beacon has been heard, but ignored by a frightened galaxy. For a moment, Leia herself, the hero of the Resistance, looks defeated. They fought to the end, but no one is coming. Here, in a sea of despair, the hope we've been waiting for arrives. Luke Skywalker has come to help, and what's left of the Resistance watches in shock as he goes out to face down the entire First Order. The sight of Luke sends an already unhinged Kylo into a rage, causing him to commit the ultimate overkill on Luke by firing all of his guns wildly at him for what feels like an eternity. Kylo's rage and hatred couldn't be better personified than that right there, with his anger only growing as the shots continue to be poured on. Finally, as the dust settles, we see Luke, completely unscathed, standing there, and with a look of pure disinterest, wipes away some pretend dust from his robe. It's almost as if Luke is paying homage to his first master, Obi-Wan, with a pure level of sass. Kylo and Luke's battle is an interesting one, as it isn't like a traditional battle. Instead, we once again have a parallel to The Empire Strikes Back, with Luke not really being there to fight, but rather try and talk to Kylo, just like how Darth Vader did to him all those years ago. Kylo fails to listen and lashes out violently, but rather than fight, Luke chooses to easily dodge every attack that came his way. Fun fact, if you look closely at Luke's movement, you can actually tell that he isn't really there well before the reveal happens. There's a few main tells here, with the most obvious one being the lightsaber in his hand, the very same one that had been destroyed by Kylo and Rey. He is also going out of his way not to make contact with Kylo's blade, despite having ignited his own to seemingly fight. But the biggest tell of all is something that I guarantee most of us missed when we first watched the film, and that is the fact that Luke's feet don't kick up any red salt, despite us clearly seeing Kylo's movement doing it. It's such a small detail that I was blown away by this whenever I first heard about it, and I can still very much appreciate it to this day. As we arrive at the end of this climactic battle, I want to touch on the 2 main themes present here: failure and rebirth. Just about every major character has failed in one way or another during this film, and has had to learn from it in order to grow. I've already mentioned Poe and Finn, but this extends to Luke, Rey, and Kylo as well. The Skywalkers have failed. Luke has given in to despair. Kylo's Ren leads the First Order, and Leia's Resistance has been all but destroyed. But within their failure comes a chance to start over. Luke Skywalker sacrifices himself and allows for a new hope to once again rise. As the Battle of Crait ends, the Resistance and Jedi are reborn and will continue to fight, having learned many important lessons that will aid them in their hardships that lay ahead. For everything that The Last Jedi gets wrong, I think right here is where it all really comes together, with a shot of Luke looking at the twin suns. He had come a really long way since his days on Tatooine, and at the end of his life, he looks out at those suns with not the sense of longing or desire for adventure, but rather satisfaction as he passes the torch to Rey and becomes one with the Force. George Lucas once said that Star Wars is like poetry, it rhymes, and I think the Battle of Crait really encapsulates that idea. But what do you think? What do you like or dislike about the battle? And what about Luke? I'd love to hear your thoughts and comments down below. Be sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and as always, cheers.